Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
All right, I'm in charge now, so we're going to take this break. If you can find a place where you can do it for cheaper, which we've tried to be, and a place where you like, which we've also tried to do, then, why not? We have an academic coach here, Eric Pfeiffer, who likes to give our guys a bad time about letting books back them into a corner. And, because every wrestler's a tough guy, of course, right? I haven't crunched the numbers yet, but we're sitting at right around a 3.0 team GPA for 36 athletes. If you love wrestling, which we all do, we're all wrestling nerds. And it's kind of our driving force. It's in the blood. So we use that as the motivation. You want to wrestle, so you need to jump through these hoops. And one of those hoops is passing your classes. Regardless of whenever the time comes, I think we're going to leave this place better than it will, 1,000 times better than we got it, And so that's kind of the goal. It's been fun because, like I said, I was a junior college guy. I relate to these guys. I was a knucklehead, and I needed a little bit of kick in the ass. I needed an arm put around. We go corporate practices are at 6, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Got to be in the facility ready to rock by 5:55. And part of that for me is it's an adult skill to have to get out of bed when you don't want to. Better self-managers. That's another thing we talk about all the time here is to be a self-manager and be the boss of your own, your own journey. I got guys that are drinking coffee now, right? Like that's a grown man thing, right? This is Josh Rhoden, and you're listening to Airey Bros Radio.
How you been? How's the holiday season treating you? How's the semester wrapping up? How's the weather in Clackamas today?
Well, it's cold as hell, and it's rainy. And that's consistent with Oregon. We don't have any crazy tornadoes or anything like that, so we're blessed, right? We'll take that. Yeah. Holidays, I love it. It's favorite time of year. We give guys a lot of time off in between, contests and stuff like that. So that's good. Good break, natural break for them too. You know what I mean? I used to always have to make weight over Thanksgiving. I thought that was the stupidest thing in the world.
Yep.
So I'm like, all right, I'm in charge now, so we're gonna take this break. We need this. So that's cool. Finishing up the term, got grades. Everybody did awesome. So I'm excited about that too. That's make me sleep a lot better tonight. I can promise you that.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah.
With the season being underway now, is the 2021-2022 season sort of back to normal compared to 2020, 2021?
Yeah, I think a hell of a lot more normal, at least. I mean, most of it's going to be dictated on the host institution, right, and their state and local stuff. So we've had to test prior to some events. We've not had to test prior to some events. We had to test 3 times for Pacific University's event. So it's sort of a combination of all of the above. It's a heck of a lot more normal, man. I mean, last year, heck, we didn't even get into our wrestling room until like end of February because Nationals got pushed back to April, right? And so I think in March was the first time we actually got into our wrestling room for the year. And so this is a lot better, man. It's a heck of a lot better. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard you talk about that on an interview with Zeb about not being able to get into your wrestling room until April. And, you guys were 2-time defending champs going for your 3rd title. Yeah. How do you keep the guys confident and let them know they can still do it when they've only been in the room for a month and a half? I'm sure that was a harder part than the actual wrestling itself.
Convincing them to stay here through us only lifting and running for the first semester was one of the hardest jobs I've done. Really, like, yeah, we're gonna wrestle at some point. It's gonna happen. When knowing full well, like my back channel conversations with our dean of students and our president were like, if we can't wrestle, you need to let me know before this semester begins because I need to let these guys transfer. Like we knew Zeth was going to be a champ. Like he was that good. I mean, he penned his way through the tournament. We knew we had some kids who were going to be able to showcase their abilities and get scholarships at 4-year schools if given the opportunity. And so a lot of it was like, hey, trust us. I'm advocating for you. So there's this whole big, really long story of, we tried to go to Grandview and NAIA school. They were going to let us rent out a dormitory and eat our meals there and like wrestle in their wrestling room and like this whole big elaborate thing that we had planned out and paid for. Like we had it ready to roll. And Clackamas was like, nah. And I'm like, listen, if you're going to say no to this, we got to have some assurance we're going to wrestle. And they were like, look, if we're allowed to, we're going to let you go. And then come to find out, we got 3 contests, I think, in what we would call our regular season, right? And that was leaving the state. Ironically enough, we'd leave the state to go to Idaho for a week at a time because Idaho wasn't as crazy and wanting to test and be really strict on everything as Oregon was. And then we had to come back into Oregon and quarantine for like a 7 to 10 day period. And then we could go do it again, right? So it was like, we just went hoop jumping and convinced these guys that it was going to be worth it. And thank God it was, man, because I think, the hard thing is you look at it like, man, Western Wyoming and Iowa Central were 2nd, 3rd. They both got to wrestle all year. Like they were in contests all year long, in their room all year long. And we got to wrestle for about 5 weeks in here. So, and made it happen. So, I mean, kind of a cool story. We got to make the movie someday maybe or something like that.
Yeah, well, talking about making a movie, they have the Last Chance U series on Netflix, and Jimmy's a film student here in Denver at CU Denver, and we often talk about, that finding that junior college wrestling program,
right,
and kind of doing that sort of Last Chance U style for wrestling to get that wrestling content out for the wrestling fans. That would be great. But it seemed like almost, you get you recruit the kids. I hate using the word sell, but you have your, what you used, your recruiting tools, and then it sounded like last year almost you had to do even more recruiting once you got them on campus to keep them on campus.
Yeah, we did. I mean, we had one of our best recruiting classes last year. We lost 5 kids. One's Ashton Habil, who's now at Life U. He was a top 10 kid in the country at 182 out of Florida. He's like, dude, this is crazy, because we had wildfires at the time too, right as school starts. And it was crazy, right? They usually don't get that close. And I fought wildfire. And if you're from the West, you get it. Like, it's just something that's part of life. Just like they have hurricanes in Florida. If I showed up at Florida State and I'm like, shit, there's a hurricane, I don't want to live here, I could imagine that being the case. So along with COVID going at the same time, and he's from Florida, right? And Florida's like, what COVID, And so Oregon's the exact opposite. And so with those two things combined, we lost him. We lost Justin Mejia, who ends up coming back, and he's here now, who's a tough kid, 4-timer out of California, and, a couple other guys that were going to be key for us, I thought. And so at the beginning, it was like almost, oh, man, is it slipping? And then the core group of guys were like, they were in. We were going to jump through the hoops together. And so, yeah, there was still another selling element because, when you start losing a couple guys, it's like, where does it stop is really the concern, right? Because it's like anything else in recruiting. If you can get a couple, you get that ball rolling and guys are talking to each other because a lot of them know each other, then it makes it easier, right? And so I was really concerned at a couple of points where I was like, oh man, is it gonna unravel? And so thankfully it did not. We did do a good job of getting them to buy in. We had an older group of guys for junior college, some returners that knew like, hey, these guys got us. This is a good staff. This is the place we want to be and try and do this. So that was fortunate. I think that played into our hand as well. So when you're going for your third, it's easier for guys to say yes to, well, yeah, we want to be a part of chasing the third one. And so that made it a little easier on us, I guess, than if we had never won it and now we're trying to convince you to stay, right? That's a little different too. So
yeah, for sure.
And due to the season being a little shorter, was there any leniency? I know Division I got an extra year. Did JUCO guys get that or no?
They did. Yeah. They get, so now it's, you got the COVID year. And so it's just a non-counter for everybody. And so that was kind of cool. So you're going to see this year for the first time ever in the history of junior college, a 3-time All-American, maybe a couple of them. So we have a couple guys that are going to try and do it. And then I think Iowa Central does, and NEO, a couple other teams that have some guys returning Western Wyoming. So it's kind of a cool thing, right? Like it's unique, so it benefited us quite a bit, though. There's a couple guys that we got in the transfer process too. That Nick Aguilar at 25 from Rutgers, that COVID year allowed him to have an extra year here at junior college. So we're thankful for it right now.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that's cool for you too, right? Because you only really have the kids for 2 years, maybe 3 if they do that red shirt, and you probably get attached. Hey, I really like that kid. I wish I had you for another couple of years, and now you actually have that opportunity.
It's awesome because it's probably as old of a team as we've had in the sense that we have a few guys who are going to be third-year guys that could have moved on, and they're like, no, I want to try and get 4 because 4 ties the record, right? And so they want to stick around for that. And it left that open for guys to have that option. And so that's a really cool thing. Cause you're right. Like it's usually a revolving door, man. I mean, some guys, if they have good enough grades, it's 1 year, they just go showcase their talent and they're already an NCAA qualifier. They're gone, and which is, one and done. That's fine. I mean, we do that oftentimes, or they get their 2 years and their degree and it's, back to wherever they wanted to be. And so, I mean, that's the process for us and that's part of it, but it's really cool when you get guys that want to come back. And now it's like, oh man, you actually have older guys on a team, which would be essentially a redshirt sophomore, and so for most of us that wrestled a 4 year, it's like, man, how blessed is it to have a redshirt senior? The guy knows this. It's like a grad assistant on that wrestles for you. So that's kind of a cool thing too. But
you mentioned earlier about, you just got grades coming in, and I think and with mentioning the last chance I think oftentimes the community college or the junior college aspect kind of gets that stigma of, kids that aren't necessarily academically inept or qualified for that. Can you speak to that in terms of, because I think as a whole, individual sports, being as a runner and a wrestler, I think those guys or gals know how to do hard work, be it in the room or in the classroom. Do you notice that a lot too, that it's not necessarily guys that are dealing with academic issues coming out of high school?
Yeah, it's literally what we fought early on in the recruiting process, right? Is like trying to convince people that this is a legitimate opportunity to pay less money for the same classes that I took at a 4-year school that cost me $30,000 a year, right? So, and it's no different. Class sizes are smaller and you're paying less money. Those are the two differences, really. And so for us, it's been a lot about, attacking that stigma, right? We would just go at it instead of away from it. And so it's like, no, listen, there's a lot of smart guys on the roster. They just don't want to pay as much money as everybody else. We have guys like an Alex Ramirez from Southern California who was committed to North Dakota State, but it was expensive, right? Even with scholarship. And so it's like, it's not because he's not good enough, because he's really good. And it's not because he's not smart enough. He's really smart. He just didn't want to pay as much money. And this was an easy way to do that, right? So as that continues to happen, and we all know, where the news is going in terms of, student loan debt and everything else that accumulates as a part of the academic process, if you can find a place where you can do it for cheaper, which we've tried to be, and a place where you like, which we've also tried to do, then, why not? And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of people who still think that it's, it's a bunch of dumb kids that are just trying to keep the dream alive, right? Well, they're trying to keep the dream alive. Some of them, sure, maybe or athletically, they're not as good. And so this is a great place to grow in your athletic ability, mature. That was my case, right? I was tiny coming out of high school and, wrestled 135 and then wrestled 174 as a junior in college. So it's like, I just didn't grow till late. Right. And so there's some of that too. Right. And so we're trying to be a place where kids can come and continue to chase their dream. Sure. But get their education, because that's the thing that sticks with us, right? Wrestling stops at some point, unless you're lucky enough like myself to continue to get paid to do your hobby as your job. Right. And so, I was fortunate. Not everybody else is. And so we have an academic coach here, Eric Pfeiffer, who likes to give our guys a bad time about letting books back them into a corner. And, because every wrestler's a tough guy, of course, right? And so you can't be, in his words, not mine, you can't be a bitch and let a book back you into a corner. So, I mean, that to me is encouraging. I don't want to be a bitch and I don't want to do that. So guess what? I'm going to read the book and I'm going to go through the process and jump through the hoops, because Mr. Pfeiffer is going to call me out onto the rug if I don't. Because I am a tough guy in the mat, but I'm not a great tough guy in the wrestling room, or in the academic area. So it's kind of a fun little thing. He's great. We have Miss PJ who helps our guys academically. She's our academic advisor here, and they both do an awesome job. We have a super student focus group and have helped us be super successful. I mean, I haven't crunched the numbers yet, but we're sitting at right around a 3.0 team GPA for 36 athletes, with I don't think anybody that is still on the roster that is ineligible. So, I mean, that doesn't happen everywhere. I'm certain that it does happen other places, because I'm good friends with a lot of coaches that do a very good job at this division as well. And I think it's becoming more of the rule rather than the exception, which has been the case in the past, right? Everybody thought, oh, this is an easy way to just kind of keep wrestling, and then I'll goof off a little bit and take some easy classes. These guys are all trying to get a degree and move on. And I think we've shown that that's part of the process here at Clackamas, at least.
Yeah, I think you mentioned with Zeb as well, you know, in terms of the 2-year matriculation rate as opposed to the general population of the school is a substantially higher percentage because of that motivation.
Yeah, I mean, we have so much awesome support that we get here, but I mean, our guys are motivated too, because what we try and do, right, is talk about if you love wrestling, which we all do, we're all wrestling nerds, and it's kind of our driving force. It's in the blood. So we use that as the motivation. You want to wrestle, so you need to jump through these hoops. And one of those hoops is passing your classes. We have an 80%, just about an 80% graduation and 4-year transfer rate. The general population at Clackamas is like 32%. And so substantially better than the general population. And it's because of the support we provide. I mean, myself and our coaching staff literally sit through study halls with them. You know, we'll check on all their online platforms to make sure that things are getting submitted on time and correctly. Because there's literally some deficits that guys have to understand, or some different formatting things, because not everything's the same. We have Moodle here, other places have Blackboard, and there's different, you know, online platforms that kids have to learn. And so there's a lot of that stuff that we walk through with them, where some places they just expect that you got to know. It's like, hey, go get your job done, right? And so that's certainly not the case. I wouldn't say it's hand holding as much as it is doing life with them, right? Going shoulder to shoulder and saying, hey, let's walk through this. What questions do you have that we can answer? And being an active participant in their education. So
Nurturing.
Yeah, man, 100%. I think it's part, right? It's part of life, right? Like if
Yeah.
you're a parent or if you're a friend or you care about somebody, I can't tell you I care about you only in wrestling. It's like I got to show you, hey, man, I actually care about you. Let's go get lunch and let's look over your stuff, right? Like that's just part of it.
And mentioning the gentleman that was thinking about going to North Dakota State and then decided to come join you guys.
Yeah.
Do you see athletes like that who have those Division I offers and then decide to go to Clackamas and then in 2 years turn that around to a bigger offer because of how they developed with you guys?
You know, we have been fortunate in that area because we've had kids who have taken us up because the financial piece made sense, right? Where they have a smaller 10, 20% scholarship at University X. And they're like, you know, it's still a lot of money. We can pop in and say, hey, man, we can take care of the tuition and fees. Your Pell Grant takes care of everything else. And so, you know, you make a little bit of money if you do your work study job, right? Like, so there's some benefits there and you're going to take the exact same classes. And then they come in, get some, you know, some leadership, some guidance, and they wrestle really well. And guess what? They're more marketable. And so there's an opportunity. Kurt Mode's a good example of a kid who did that here. Alex is another one that said, you know, I just can't really afford this situation. So I'm going to try this. And he's making a lot of gains. I mean, the guy's like 12-1 right now, has a great season going and is going to contend for a national championship at this division. And so, you know, and that's a lot of guys, I think, you know, Robbie Rizzolino's another kid from Easton, Pennsylvania that ended up going to NC State, had some offers out of high school and chose this path and it ended up being a good path and paying dividends for him. So there's certainly a lot of guys you can point to, I think, across our history that have benefited from something like that, where they said, hey, I'm going to try this first. And it's worked out both athletically and academically. Cause I mean, it's probably a different thing jumping into Math 105 at Clackamas with 30 people or Math 105 at NC State with 500 people, right? Like, so some of us could probably work better there. Others of us wouldn't work as well because I'm just a number and I don't have to go to class every day. Here, if you don't go to class, Coach Rhoden's getting a phone call probably, right? So it's a little bit different that way.
And when it comes to recruiting, I mean, the JUCO wrestler, that spans all different kinds of categories. You got guys who won Fargo and maybe don't have the grades. You got a late bloomer who's just looking to keep his wrestling going. I know when I was out at JUCOs, there was a gentleman who was like 35. So you have that whole gamut of different kinds of wrestlers. And I know you had mentioned that you have had guys that haven't even, you know, made varsity at Clackamas, but go NIAA or D2 and are all Americans. So how do you recruit? I know you want to, you know, have the best kids, but I also know you want to give kids those opportunities too, to keep on going and further their education.
Yeah, I think part of it for us is that it's changed is that they built us a new facility here like 4 years ago. And so before that, we had to make cuts, right? And so that was sort of tricky because I don't like to cut people because it's wrestling. Wrestling should be for everybody, right? Like if size doesn't matter, shape, you know, usually it's like, hey, man, big fat guys can wrestle heavyweight, and tiny kids like myself can wrestle 98 pounds in high school. So, and that should be the case. Now we also want to be super competitive. And so when we were in the little closet that we used to wrestle in, we'd have to make cuts, or we'd have to run 3 practices because it was just that small, right? It was tiny, like 1,200 square feet. It was nothing. And flash forward to where we're at now. If you come out and you make it through September's fall camp, we're going to try and keep you because we're going to bury you through September probably, right? It's going to be hard, and it's going to take a mental toll, and all the things that we all know are true and should expect. If you make it through that part, we're going to try and keep you here and keep you going in wrestling and give you the opportunity you're speaking of. Now, the other part of that is we want to be awesome too. So we do have to go out and recruit the kids and find the guys who are going to maybe slide back from Division I because they didn't find the situation that was supportive enough, or they didn't, they fell through because there's 500 kids in class and it just wasn't, what they expected it to be. Or, there's the kids that are great students and just needed a little more time to develop their wrestling. And so we have had a lot of guys that have been here. Coach Daniel coaches with us now, who lost to Robbie Rizzolino, the young man I referenced earlier that went to NC State in the wrestle-off at Clackamas. So he didn't wrestle at Nationals. Got an opportunity to go to Lindsey Wilson, which is a very good NAIA program, a couple-time runners-up. Daniel was the athlete of the year there, was 3rd in the country for him twice, and, got school paid for. And so, there's some cool opportunities, and he's just one simple example of young men that we get to have in our program that both help us. And so in return, we're going to help them by marketing those guys out to other places. And the good thing that's happened over now 16 years of being here is, if we recommend somebody, people take it seriously, right? We could be on the other side of that, where we're just going to, throw every kid out because we're trying to help every kid and not give you the truth. We're going to tell you the truth. Like, hey, Billy doesn't go to class. He can wrestle. He's amazing, but you're going to have to hold his hand to go to class, right? Like, that will be said. And I tell my guys that, like, if you don't want me to say that about you, then don't give me that thing to say, right? Like, I'm not going to lie to them, because if I say it for true right now, then guess what? Guys get opportunities. And that's the goal, right? As we go down this road. And now we've got hundreds of kids who've had opportunities at other places because Coach Daniel gives them a recommendation, or Coach Vigorito, or myself. And, people are like, oh yeah, that's a Clackamas guy. We want to, and it's not just because we're good, right? It's because we're honest too. And so if I'm like, hey, Billy, he's going to have as much fun on the weekend as he is on the wrestling mat, then at least it's honest, right? I can give you an honest assessment of the kid. And we've been able to do that. And so guys have gotten some cool opportunities too.
Talking about the recruiting process, we've had quite a few Division I coaches, and Jason Welsh from San Francisco State. They, the bigger Division I schools and even San Francisco State are, trying to kind of wrangle in their region and really build that local kind of net so that they can build the crowd and the fan base and that sort of stuff to draw the fans in. What is the recruiting process like for you? I know you're in the Pacific Northwest, and there's I think a lot of people sleep on the wrestlers there, but you've also had you've got some guys from Easton on your roster. We're Rutgers fans, so we've seen Nick Aguilar wrestle. You've got him now, even though he's a California guy.
Sure.
What is the recruiting process like for you? Are there Division I coaches that are reaching out to you? Maybe, hey, we got this guy. He's a really good wrestler, but he might not be able to make it in here right away. Do you have any relationships like that too?
Yeah, no, thankfully I do. I've got some good friends that coach at multiple divisions. And so we get to kind of talk about guys here and there. And even if we want to get a kid and we end up not, like, it's nice to have those relationships, right? Where if there's going to be a kid that's going to bounce back, they let us know. And so I think that if they're good, most college assistants at four-year schools have multiple relationships like that, right? So that they can try and get the best kid on the turnaround. That being said, I do have great relationships with several guys that will shoot me a text, hey, this is a kid you want to look at, or shoot me an email when they get somebody's transcript that maybe is just below their admissions threshold, right? Because we have a rolling admissions. It's different. We don't have to have an SAT to get in here. We just have to have a high school diploma. And so that's a totally different situation for guys who maybe aren't great test takers or hadn't done great work in their core classes yet in high school. And so we get those opportunities from coaches and then a lot of high school coaches too, just knowing that we've done a good job with their young men. And I think for us, what changed probably is, recruiting California quite a bit better than other schools. and if other schools watch this, they can know that that's fine. That's exactly what I tried to do as soon as I got here. Right. And so as soon as we started winning California, we started winning. And so, and that's just going to be true. I think they're just a super difficult state. We keep the good Oregon kids that aren't going to go to a 4-year school, or maybe not a 4-year school, aren't going to go Division I, right? The next best level of kid that isn't going to go to Oregon State or isn't going to go to, maybe a Stanford or wherever all the kids are going, right now that we have a pretty good group of juniors and seniors. We're trying to get that next kid and make sure that he stays in Clackamas, and then, move him from there. Zeth, Trajan, Josh Reyes, guys like that were national champs for us, all Oregon kids. Some people, Jason Shaner, maybe have never heard of until now. Jason Shaner's at Oregon State, and he's wrestling RBY 7-4 the other day or whatever. So it's like, guys like that maybe get under recruited. It's my job to make sure they don't get missed, right? And so, and especially regionally, right? Regionally, I have to do that job. If I miss guys and they go someplace else, like in North Idaho or in Iowa Central or in Northeast Oklahoma, then that eats me up, right? I don't like that very much. And so we lost a Gilroy kid a couple years ago to NEO. He was a heavyweight. I told him, if you want to win a team title, you should come here. I wasn't wrong that year. Actually, we won the national championship and set the scoring record. But he wanted a heavyweight pretty easily. And so thankfully he didn't love Oklahoma that much. And the next two Gilroy kids came to Clackamas, and that's Nick Aguilar and Victor Jacinto. And both of them are pretty bad dudes. So we just got to keep doing right by those guys and their families by helping them get their education and move on to the next step. And so if we continue to do that, we're going to get lots of recommendations. And I think that's really what butters the bread at this level, right? At where there's a lot of recruiting that goes into this. If for some reason I don't take care of a kid, and I don't mean do it for them, I mean hold them accountable and allow them to have the best experience possible, and then communicate with their people if they're not, which that's the job, right? If I've communicated with them like, hey, he's struggling in this, he needs to do that, and then we have to sever ties, at least those people knew in advance, right? I think that's probably beholden to me to make sure that I'm doing that job communicating, and not just like, oh yeah, he didn't do his job, I'm out. It's not widgets in a factory. If I care about you, again, I'm going to care enough to go and say the right things that I need to say to people, even having the hard conversations that people don't like to have, right? So I think that's important if you're going to build a fan base and a base of people that want to have basically return business, right, to your company. And so that's really no different. Is if I do a good job, people are going to want to come back, and we've thankfully done a really good job.
Yeah, heck yeah. With that being said, do you have any connections to a New Jersey pipeline? Yeah, man, have you had any Jersey guys?
New Jersey is a tough one because we definitely want to get kids from Jersey. They go to Iowa Central, and we don't like Iowa Central.
I hear you.
I'm not even going to pretend. Eleazar DeLuca is one of our guys. He's out there. Eleazar was a Clackamas guy, 2-time All-American. He's out there, was at Rutgers for 2 years, and now he's coaching high school. He's got Bad WC, and he's doing some stuff with why am I blanking on his name? I should Mob and Media, Anthony
Ashnault,
yeah. And so they're doing their kind of thing. So I mean, we got people that we know. We got a 6 degree of separation. Eleazar told me I got to get my ass out there and get to the tournament so we can start shaking hands with people. So I probably should do that this year. I better put it on the schedule.
Yeah, it's always a good time because they do the state tournament in Atlantic City. So
yeah, that would be all right. I imagine, right? Like that would be fun.
It's a fun weekend.
Throw some dice. Like, yeah, I could probably handle both those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the only, now it's probably the only reason I would go back to Atlantic City at this point. That's the draw.
Coach, you said you like to, get the California guys because that's right there. And I know California has their own JUCO, and I spent some time in California doing jiu-jitsu, and those guys take pride in the California JUCO. But do you ever say when you're recruiting to the guys, hey, this is real JUCO wrestling?
I explain it to them. Yes.
Not the state champ, national champ.
State champ is not the same as national champion. I don't care. They just got done, and everybody's like, oh, Mount Sac made history. Well, because Fresno City was the team, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, listen, pull up if you think you made history. We're ready anytime. And we'll wrestle those guys. I don't mind. I would love for them to come up here. I've offered it and extended. The only one that really does is Cerritos, Donnie Garrett. He's my guy. I like that guy a lot. Great dude. Does a good job. I think they're runners up again this year. And but that's the truth, though. I mean, they have good programs, and they've got so much talent, man. I think there's like 24 programs or 25 programs down there that have wrestling, but they wrestle from August to December. So who can see them I mean, by the time our season actually starts, where we can actually compete, which is the first weekend in November, those guys are already 3/4 of the way through their season, right? They just completed their end of the year competition this past weekend. And so it's like, when are you going to see them? Conferences for them was 2 weeks ago. So there's maybe that first weekend that we could see them. And that's kind of it. So I'd love to, though. I like wrestling those guys. We wrestled Fresno City a couple of times, Cerritos a couple of times. So it's quite a bit of fun. I enjoy that. And then Donnie, we had this kind of running joke that's like, every kid that you get out of California that's not from my area, I give you $5, right? Like, it doesn't ever, I never get $5.
Yeah.
You can get kids out of California for 12 years or something like that. But that's kind of the joke until now. Now Alex Ramirez is from his area, and he's a pretty bad dude, man. He's fantastically talented, but that one wasn't as fun for him, I don't think. But yeah,
I would imagine that their season is also kind of advantageous as a recruiting tool for you guys, or for any junior college, because it just falls in line with the natural wrestling season where you can get those D1 or D2 or NAI looks with some of those other schools at the opens, or even scheduling dual meets.
I mean, it's more than just, hey, we wrestle a national championship. It's we wrestle in Reno. We go to the national duels. We see Division I teams on the regular. Like, you get to see 4-year schools everywhere we go. That doesn't happen as much down there. We've gone down there a couple of times, and it's like junior college only tournaments, which is rare for us. We don't see any of those. I don't get to see any of those on my schedule. And so I think it's more advantageous for us when we explain it to people. They're like, oh yeah, I definitely want to check that out. Right. Like, it's a regular season. You get coaches, when Jimmy Zaleski was at Oregon State, telling guys like, hey, if you're going to do it, go to Clackamas, because they wrestle the same schedule we do, so that they can actually see how do your grades and your lifestyle and your longevity work with a Division I season, right? Like, the length of it. So now, whenever they get to a point where they're going to change wrestling to be one semester, I'm assuming California will go the same semester as we do, which would sounds like January through April, if they do it. If they don't, that would be really odd, right? Like, be the fall sport to the spring sport. I don't know, but that sounds like that might be coming down the pipeline too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to your point, Coach, I don't think people realize that JUCOs have just as tough a schedule as some Division I schools, because the majority of JUCO wrestling is happening at opens. Rarely, I mean, are you wrestling other JUCOs and just JUCOs? Maybe some duels for your conference, but the majority of the time you're seeing people from every division.
Yeah, we're ramping up to go to Reno this weekend to the Tournament Champions, and I mean, that's been a great one for us, simply, and especially for recruiting, right? Like, guys want to know where are they going to get opportunities to be seen, right, and have opportunities to wrestle guys. And so I think for us, that one's a huge one. I know that there's a lot of junior colleges in the Lindenwood Open, which is big, the Kaufman brand. I mean, go down the list of the big opens outside of maybe the Scuffle. I don't know that there's very many junior colleges that go there, but even Midlands, I've seen, Harper and some of those ones in the Midwest that are at the Midlands. So it's like, there's legitimate opportunities to be able to wrestle anybody you want to, whether that's Iowa or whoever, right? Like, we've wrestled Penn State and Oklahoma State down at Reno a couple of times when they've been there. Cornell, we got smoked, but you can wrestle them if that's what you want to do, right? Like, you get that opportunity. So, and sometimes that's all it takes, right? Is we've had guys also, Josh Reyes beat Oklahoma State's kid that was an All-American, and that got him a great opportunity to go on to the next place with some good money. And so that's what kids are looking for, right?
And talking about having kids from all over the place, you mentioned Easton before. Is there on-campus dorms, or is there off-campus housing? How's that work?
That is an awesome question, because I've been begging for dorms for a long time. We have off-campus housing only. So we have apartments there right where I'm sitting in my office in the athletics department. We're probably 1,000 feet from one set of apartments. There's another one about 1,500 feet from there. And then a 3 to 4 minute walk is another one. So and then a brand new one that's getting built, maybe, 1,500 to 2,000 feet from there. So quarter mile or something. Everything's really close, but nothing's connected with the college, right? So it's not like I can just say, hey, here's your package. We have to pay some rent. We got to pay some utilities. So there's like life skills that are also happening here in real time, right? So there's a little bit of element of babysitting and educating parents and kids as we go through this process of, hey, you got to pay the lights if you want to keep them on. Right, that's actually a thing. And if you want heat, you got to pay for that too. Otherwise, they turn that stuff off. And so, I mean, there's some things that happen that some parents aren't as comfortable with. So we do lose kids sometimes to that, because, school X is going to have dorms for them, and they want that. Or there's been people on the other side like, hey, this is a great opportunity for my son to learn how to grow up, and let's do it. So, I think once they see it physically, because the proximity is such that it's not as intimidating. When you hear off campus, people are like, oh man, I don't want Johnny freaking riding his bike 10 minutes. Like, you could run to me right here in less than 3 minutes from where they live. Right. So, that being said, or longboard, a lot of them longboard, right? Like, that's the thing, I guess. But
you allow that?
Heck yeah, dude. Longboards are fun, man. Or electric scooters now are big in Portland, right? So there's some of those. It's like pay for a scooter. I don't know, whatever. Do your thing. Or the wheelies or whatever, the single wheel.
The one wheel.
One wheel. There
Yeah.
you go. So there's some one wheels rolling around. These guys, who knows? I don't know.
Right. Well, I think there's something to be said for those life lessons of keeping your lights on and paying your rent and learning those things. I think those are invaluable skills that sometimes don't get taught as you're coming up through the education system, through middle school and high school. And I think, you'd rather maybe fall flat at, sooner than later to learn those lessons. So I think that's an important.
Yeah. Real life personal finance, like happening in real time, right? Like, how does a bank account work? Well, I mean, if you got more deductions than you got deposits, we're in trouble, right? So we got to make sure and work with that too. So, and there's the conversation every time financial aid funds, we have 3 terms here, and every, week number 2 on a Friday, I'm like, do not come back with new Jordans, don't come back with the iPhone, whatever number it is. And, a fitted hat that you just bought, like, there goes financial aid money. It's all gone, right? You're going to eat top ramen for the next 3 months. So, we try and encourage them, pay your rent ahead of time, man. Pay the next 3 months in advance, something, dude.
Yeah.
So,
and could you had mentioned not being too far from Portland. I don't know if you've ever been to Iowa Central, but I went there on a recruiting trip, and there ain't much going on at Fort Dodge.
Fort Dodge, yeah.
Yeah, what's the campus like, and is that a good recruiting tool for you?
Troy Steiner actually told me one time, sitting at California State Tournament, Fort Dodge is the armpit of Iowa, and I've used that before in recruiting. So, now, having said that, Portland recently is in the news for all the wrong reasons. So, to be fair, I mean, I'm sure that's being used as well. Oregon City is approximately 25 minutes to the southeast of Portland. We're only about 15 minutes drive from PDX, which is outside the city, which is the airport, international airport here. But I'll tell you this, if you come to Oregon State, it's kind of a mixture where, urban and blue collar kind of blend, right? Because the outskirts is like hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, some farms and ranches. And then you've got kind of, as you move towards the city, a little more urban industrial look and feel, where you can, hit the max and hit anywhere around the city. You can get to a Blazer game, you can get downtown, you can get to the airport on the light rail, and all the way over to Beaverton or wherever you want to go. And so that's kind of a cool thing. I think it's kind of a unique place, especially in junior college, because most of them are rural America, right? Like, they're tiny towns, tiny freaking towns that dot the map on a rural route somewhere. That's not the case here. It's a major interstate that runs right by us and connects you to I-5 and anywhere you want to be. And then you also are in Oregon. I don't know if you've ever been to Oregon, but it's awesome, right? Like, it's literally God's country. You can go hike, 1,000-foot waterfalls, and you can go out. I mean, some of our guys on our active recovery day the other day, they went up to Multnomah Falls, hiked that, and then hit a Blazer game in the evening. So it's like, there's plenty to do in terms of whatever your likings are. And then the food scene's pretty awesome, like any major city, pretty eclectic. And so if you like pho, or pho, I guess is how my guys told me I got to say it, is pho. The guys from California know how to say that kind of thing. I don't. I'm a country guy from Oregon. So, but that's good. We got some of that rocking around here. Some Thai food that's bomb. And then food carts are a big deal around here. So food carts are kind of a fun thing. We usually take recruits to that because there's tons of options and you get to try a little bit of everything, right? And then if you guys' age, right, or my age, it's like usually those food carts are centered around some brewery, right? And so that's kind of a cool thing too. So, it's got kind of a cool little scene. Coffee. I love coffee. That's kind of a big deal. My wife likes wine, and there's not a whole lot better place to be than right around here. So we're pretty blessed in that sense. And the weather's not terrible, man. You're not going to come out here and get caught in a damn blizzard. I'll tell you that right now. If it snows, the whole dang city panics and shuts down, right? The only people driving are people like me and my Ford pickup running around to get guys to take them to practice because everything else is canceled, right? So you'll get a little rain and then you'll get some sunshine, and it's green as heck. So it's not bad.
Yeah. That was what I was going to say before when we were talking about the Jersey pipeline. I was imagining Clackamas has to be a better location than Fort Dodge, Iowa.
I have to believe that, dude. I mean, truthfully, everybody that flies out here from, like, let's say Pennsylvania, Kagan Hanlovic was the first kid we got. It's him and Jordan Oliver were teammates at Easton, right? And like they were 112, 119, so they were wrestling partners. He flies all the way out here. He's like, oh my gosh, I've never seen mountains this big. Like, oh, I can't believe that, like, how nice people are. I'm like, what, people aren't nice? He's like, hell no, nobody's ever holding the door for you back home. He's like, that ain't happening. Like, it's just funny to me to hear some of the things that, you know, guys say. And then if you come from Fresno Valley, it's not 120 degrees here either, right? So I bring you in the spring, it's 70 and sunny, and they just left 105 and I can't stand it, right? So it's pretty good. I mean, it's kind of that mild temperate. And so guys that don't like freezing anymore can come here and not freeze, and guys that hate the heat so much can come here and cool down. So we got a nice little mix there.
Right on. Yeah, Oregon's a beautiful, beautiful place. I've been there as a runner, you know, going to the Mecca of Hayward Field and doing Priest Trail. You know, I had to check that off on the bucket list. You know, going back to the housing and being, you know, life lessons and those sorts of things for the athletes, is the school itself more of a commuter school? Do the guys have to provide their own meals? Do they have to take care of their nutrition as well? Is there on-campus dining halls and stuff, or how does all that work?
No, good question. So we did just open a brand new student union building. We've always had a cafeteria, typically serves breakfast and lunch, doesn't do dinner because no one's on campus in the evening, right? So yeah, it's kind of a weird mixture. It is a commuter school because there's not on-campus housing, so we would be titled a commuter school. There is a dining hall, and it's really good. They also added food trucks because we're eclectic, right? So the food trucks pull up, and you know, this was all pre-COVID, and this is what we're going to get back to once we get post-COVID, whenever that happens, right? But our cafeteria's been open. They've got bomb breakfast burritos. The guys love those. Like, that's what everybody has in study hall, so I'm assuming they're awesome still. And then it's sort of, you know, unique in that sense because we've got right across the street, literally, because it's Oregon City is probably 50,000 people city. You got OC Point, which has like 5 guys. It's got Hawaiian Time, which is a Hawaiian food place, Panda, and Starbucks, and you know, all the stuff that's literally a walk, maybe 2-3 minutes from where I'm sitting. So there's a lot that you can get to. The grocery store is literally on the next corner, and then their housing where they live in their apartments is the next corner from there. So in terms of, you know, if we could draw a circle that's maybe, you know, two miles in diameter, you're going to find 3 different grocery stores, all the apartments, and then the campus. So it's kind of a unique setting in that respect. But to your larger point, we still go through the nutrition plan. We actually have a meal plan that we want them to walk through and talk to them about. We've literally, my wife's helped teach guys how to cook stuff, right? Don't know how to cook pasta. They never had cooked pasta or chicken before. So we go through the process with them and teach them how to cook a little bit something. And, you know, a lot of guys will eat out, and thankfully there's some decent places that, you know, can provide some healthy options, to include the cafe here on campus.
So you said your wife's helping them, you know, cook it and teaching them that stuff. You've been there for 16 years. Are you satisfied with being at Clackamas? You want to keep building that dynasty? Have you had offers from other divisions, or you enjoy the JUCO?
No, good question. I have had other offers. It seems like quite a few recently, and then, you know, probably yearly for the last 5 years or so. And that's kind of as we've gotten better, and I guess garnered a little more attention. You know, I love it here. I was a student here myself. Our family's here, so it gets harder to look to move. But I think, you know, it would have to be a really great opportunity because, like I said before, it feels like stealing money. I'm getting paid to do what I love, and with the group of guys that probably could use the help that I could provide. You know, I talked to a couple of different Division I schools about assistant coaching positions that they've had available recently, and was a candidate for the Oregon State job when it opened up, and Chris got it. And Chris and I are really good friends, and he's like, "Hey, what do you think about coming on staff?" And it's like, you know, it just wasn't the right timing, I guess, for us and our family. My daughter's was an 8th grader, and middle school's hard already, and moving didn't seem to probably make that a whole lot easier. So, you know, a lot of other things come into play other than what I want necessarily. It's not like I got what I wanted 16 years ago when I moved my wife from her hometown to come here. So it's like I got to kind of play both sides of that and make sure that it's the right move for everybody, I think. And so we've looked at it. We've looked hard at some other places. but we always kind of come back to here, and it just has been home. So, it feels really good what we've been able to do, building a new facility, and regardless of whenever the time comes, I think we're going to leave this place better than it will, 1,000 times better than we got it, and so that's kind of the goal, I think, from the beginning is to, leave it better than we got it. And so that's certainly where we're trending, and heck, maybe I never leave right until that's, I get year 30 and I can retire and go play golf somewhere or something like that, go fishing.
Well, I think that's awesome, Coach, because where we come from in Jersey, junior college wrestling, it's a revolving door with the wrestlers and the coaches. It's hard to kind of build a dynasty.
Yeah.
So to see you doing that, I think that's awesome, because we all know the value of junior college athletics. So I just think that's amazing.
I appreciate that. No, it's been fun because, like I said, I was a junior college guy. I relate to these guys. I was a knucklehead, and I needed a little bit of kick in the ass. I needed an arm put around me. And so I think being able to care about them, like I said earlier, actually nurturing them, I think Jim used, and it's like, that's exactly what it is. It's like life, in life, you need people like that are going to come alongside you. And whether it's me or Coach Figueredo or Daniel or Josh or my wife or Mr. Pfeiffer, we got so many people who love what's going on here and are intimately involved. Our president comes to every duel. Like, these people literally care about what's going on here. And that's really cool, because I don't know if they knew we had a wrestling program in 2006. I'm being dead serious, right? I'm positive they did not. There's like this little closet in the back of the gym where wrestlers were, and it's like, what's that stinky room back there? What are you guys doing back there, right? Like, and then they changed that to where we have this nice facility and a nice coach's suite, and they took good care of us. So
let's get into that old sweaty room in the back. What does a Clackamas practice look like? We've talked to a bunch of Division I coaches recently and that have switched schedules to morning practices. Greg Williams from Utah Valley splits it, so they're doing some in the morning, some in the afternoon. And the thought process, for some is, we'll get it out of the way in the morning, we get it done so you can focus on your academics. The other thought process is, well, you might have to wrestle the semifinals of the national tournament at 8 a.m. in the morning, so we're going to get you up a couple times a week so that you're used to that grind in the morning as well. What is your philosophy on practice, and when do you guys get all that good stuff in?
That's a great question. So we go, corporate practices are at 6, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, at 6 a.m. Right. And so got to be in the facility ready to rock by 5:55. And part of that for me is it's an adult skill to have to get out of bed when you don't want to. And the other part is, my first year, we lost every single match at the national championships in the first round because we went from Oregon to the Midwest and we were tired. And so when we got, and it took a little bit because we navigated that a little while where we kept it at 3 p.m. because that was just like what we always did. And I think as an athlete in high school and college, this is what time practices were, right? And so we did some morning stuff, and then we changed it a little bit and we tweaked it here. And then we got to a place in 2011, we won a national title. And then we got to a place where we were just like chasing that again. And it was more like we were caring more about results than performance. And that's the complete opposite of what we do now. And I talked with some other guys, Nick Mitchell at Grandview is a great guy, and him and I are buddies and have been for a long time. And, kind of asked him, and we talked to Greeley at Ohio and some other places, just, asking best practices of what are you guys doing and what can we change and how can we be a little bit different and more innovative. And for us, it was take it all the way to every morning that we have a practice, go at 6. And part of that's, it's a couple reasons. One, we started seeing that we had less off-campus issues if we're making them tired, because all they want to do is they want to work out, they want to eat something, they want to get to the study hall because I'm going to make it be at 9, and then they're going to either go to class or they're going to go home and sleep, right? And so I had a lot less issues all of a sudden. And I'm like, dang, this is great. So since 2017, we've been going to 6 a.m. Mondays and Tuesdays, we'll go in the afternoons. We'll come in, and half the group will do conditioning with me, and the other half will lift with Coach Daniel, and then we'll switch them. We do that Mondays and Tuesdays. And again, it's time of the year based. September and October, we do, way more lifting and kind of pre-fall conditioning stuff, a lot more distance running and stuff like that than we do currently. We don't eliminate lifting by any means. We just taper it back to 2 days a week. Unless we want you to gain weight, then we're going to make sure you're on a 4-day plan, and somebody will meet you to, just kind of have that accountability partner. And then we'll change again after December when we come back from break. we'll go into full on, conditioning mode where we're going to change to dynamic workouts and a lot more conditioning based exercises. So, treadmill sprints and deadlift EMOM and stuff like that. That's going to help these guys get to their peak performance. Right. And so that's kind of the thought process that we've really ran with since 2017. And it's been our best years by far, and not just based on winning national championships. We were second a couple of times, but in 2017 we had 5 finalists, right? So when you're looking at our guys performing at their absolute optimum for those 6 years, the answer is absolutely they are. There's no question. The previous years, maybe we were a little more scattered, right? Some guys would perform well, and maybe they would have performed well no matter what, right? Like they were just like a wrestler. So we couldn't really pinpoint it to, hey, our training is making them better at this time. Since 2017, I could tell you that's exactly what's happening. There's no question, right? Like we don't even have a thought about it. We know exactly what we're going to, and we're going to vary it because if it gets boring, that's lame. Wrestling's already hard enough. I don't need it to be boring too, because it sucked when it was boring for me, and I love wrestling, right? So we try to vary it as much as possible, both because our bodies need that so we don't plateau, and our minds need it so that it doesn't get monotonous, right? So we try and combine a couple of different things without giving away too much. We do a lot of break stuff. Midweek Wednesdays is always going to be an individualized day with or off or treatment or study or catch up or whatever you need to do. It's your day. And I think a lot more programs are probably trending that way, or at least saying they are, whether they are in practice or not, because Penn State's made it popular, right? Like they just have, right? It's, oh, wrestling's fun. Well, why is it fun? Well, we do it differently than you do, and it doesn't suck as much, right? Like that's just the truth, right? I don't care how you say it, and Kale's never going to tell us all 100%, but we found what we think's pretty close to what you'd want to be doing to get your optimum performance out of the guys that are at our level, and some of that comes with long breaks, which I am uncomfortable with. I'm not going to lie to you. The first time I did it, given a week off at Thanksgiving and 10 days off at Christmas is like, makes me apprehensive. Like, dude, these guys are going to be out of shape. And what we found is they've wrestled their best after breaks. I mean, it's just 100% been true. They come off the break, they're fresh, they're back, everybody's excited. I haven't seen you in a while. What's up? They all go back to their homes and they come back and it's jovial and everybody's happy again. And it's like, oh, dang, okay. And then after a couple of years of that, it's like, all right, man, keep recruiting the way we are and use this. And we hit our stride. And so, that doesn't mean we'll win it for infinity, but I think we found a pretty good method for now. And I think you still got to kind of change and adapt and be different based on the group, right? Like every group isn't the same. This group's a lot easier to manage and better self-managers. That's another thing we talk about all the time here is to be a self-manager and be the boss of your own, your own journey. And so we've got guys that do a pretty good job of that. So it allows us a little more freedom to let them, have some autonomy over their training. And so that's always a good thing too, I think, as an individualized society that we live in, right? It makes sense that, if I feel like I have a little more power over what I'm doing, then I'm a little more of an owner than a rental mentality, right? I'm not a renter, I'm an owner. And so that's really what we're driving at is, can you be an owner of what we're doing here? And that way we keep you as part of this for longer too, because if I have an owner mentality, then the stakes are bigger when I leave. I'm still involved. I'm retweeting stuff. I'm putting stuff on Instagram that Clackamas is putting out. I'm, giving $50 when I have it to the fundraiser. I'm invested in what we're doing. And so now it's not to say I'm doing this just to get, kickbacks from our fundraisers, but it's true. And that's how I've felt when I've, places that I've given to or places that I feel like I'm part of the process. Right. And so, or I give my time, my effort, my energy because I care about what they're doing because they've helped me feel a part of. And so certainly what we're trying to do here too, I think.
Coach, you're speaking our language. I love hearing people talk about wrestling being fun.
Yeah.
Because when I came up, I feel like I was an outlier and almost like a weirdo on my team because I was the one that was going to do, Team New Jersey, to go to Fargo, to go to this club, to go work with these coaches. And it seemed like everyone around me was just always miserable. And part of that was just weight cutting was not managed well.
Right.
And that became such a huge part of it. And it just like to hear you say about being fun and what Penn State does. And you hear guys like Yanni talk about it being fun. That like warms my heart because I was around people that just were miserable all the time.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's not like I didn't cut weight. I was a 103 pounder as a senior, you know what I mean? But I I love that so much. The other thing, 2 questions from that. Has that 6 o'clock practice, has that ever been a turnoff to anyone in the recruiting process? And with the strength and conditioning aspect of fall training and stuff like that, does the school have a strength and conditioning coach? Are you guys getting help with that, or do you design all that stuff?
Awesome question. So I'll answer the second one first. My assistant coach, Rich Vigorito, he's been with me since forever. We were boys together at PLU. Pacific Lutheran had a program back then, and we were there together. He does all of our strength and conditioning stuff. He's kind of a fitness nut, so I just kind of let him do that. So all of our he's literally designed our program from the fall program, that's our strength program, through our dynamic workouts that we do once we try to get to peak performance and we go through that last training cycle. So everything we do, he's intimately involved with and is literally either taught it to me. I mean, I've always been kind of fitnessy and fit. He's the real lifter, right? Like when I got bigger in college, just because I lifted with this guy. Otherwise, I'm like, he jokes that I'm the band guy, right? I'll use bands and do body weight stuff, right? I'll do like muscle ups, and that's kind of more my thing, right? Like he's not wrong. He's built like a brick. Like the guy's freaking, he could deadlift a dump truck, right? Like he's that kind of guy. And so he's literally done all that. And so we've kind of, messed with it and tweaked it and had some fun with it and found kind of the sweet spot there, I think. To your other question, the 6 a.m.s, does it turn people off? Yes. And I think it's the right people, if that's fair. They typically go someplace else and it doesn't work out. And it wasn't that I liked wrestling enough, maybe, or I wasn't as serious about it on that side of it. So typically I feel like that works out. Like we get the guys we need to, and if they say no, it's for the right reasons, I guess. And so, but I think that's certainly going to be, do you really want to do this or not? And back to your point, is it fun? Like I got guys that are drinking coffee now, right? Like that's a grown man thing, right? They come in and part of their life now is they drink, I'll buy coffee. I'll go to Costco, get the K-Packs. We're friggin' smashing coffees in here. So, I think it's a fun part of it too, because initially it was hard. Like any change, I'm like, oh dude, this is going to suck. But now it's like, there's guys who are like, dude, I naturally wake up on weekends at 7. I can't sleep past 7. And they're bummed about that, right? But it's just, your body will change. So it's like anything else. It's an easy teaching tool to say, hey man, if you'll do the lifting piece, you'll get the same change out of your body that you're seeing with your sleeping. It's going to change to and adapt to whatever what stress we're putting on it. And so the hard part, I think, for guys is getting to bed earlier, because sometimes guys will still early on, if they're new, they'll try and burn it late and then try to get up at 5 and you can see it in their performance. They start to get sick, their bodies break down, and they don't understand why. It's like, well, hey, let's walk back through this. What time do you go to bed? Well, like 12:31. Dude, why? Well, I'm napping from 3 to 7. Okay, stop napping. I don't know if I can. Try. And then they'll zonk out at 6 at night, and then they wake up and it's 4:30. I was like, your body just did it, dude. Like, we have to hit the 8-hour mark, because smarter people than me at Stanford wrote a research paper that says if it's 8 hours or more, you are going to get injured less. Let's not get injured. And so you can point to things like that I don't necessarily have to do, other than, do some continuing education type stuff, read some articles. And I'm kind of nerdy anyways about wrestling. And so if I can get better at coaching, I want to try and find out how to do that. And so we try and stay on the up and up as much as possible and be nerds about wrestling, I guess. I don't know. We're junkies.
Love it.
It's our drug of choice, if you know what I mean.
Heck yeah.
That and caffeine.
Heck yeah. What's the number one question you get from recruits?
Oh man, what is the number one question that I get from recruits? How much is my scholarship? I mean, that's a common
Yeah.
thing, yes, right?
Yeah, for sure.
100%. I don't know. That seems like an easy one, but
well, I think you touched on an important thing, because like Jimmy said, where we come from and New Jersey as a whole, all of the schools are Division III and they're commuter colleges. So I think that's another important thing for the listeners to be aware of, that you can go to a 2-year school and get aid and scholarship to compete. So that also goes into aiding and making things much more affordable. And I think, like I said, we were big fans of JUCO. I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't a knucklehead. I just, I needed to grow up a little bit more, and I wasn't ready to be away from home. And I needed that kind of like responsibility of doing things and getting that to at being at a community college. And I think that's just important that kids know that, you know, even if maybe Division I isn't available to you at 17 as a senior in high school, you go to a community college after 2 years or maybe 3 years with a red shirt, and then all of a sudden, you know, opportunities open and things change. So I think it's just important with how expensive schools are these days in education, like, you know, don't sleep on the junior community college
No, and we shouldn't have to even apologize, right? It's like, hey, man, listen, this is a legitimate way to come get an education. And even if it's like, it's mostly the crazy dad thing, right? Like, you never want to be the dad that's like, hey, Johnny's going Division I. Like, yeah, mother trucker, you're the one paying for it. Like, how is that an awesome thing? If you can go get free school here and still go to where he wants to with less debt, that makes sense to me, right? Like, I don't know. And I'm not knocking Division I. It's just with the current model, 9.9 scholarships only go so far. I don't care what program you're at, right? Unless you're really smart and you get it all academic aid, great. That's awesome for you. Do it. If not, if you're like the rest of us, the Jimmys and Johns and Joeys that, you know, get a 3.0 and there's only $3,000 in foundation money for that GPA, right? And maybe I get $3,000 from wrestling. Well, that's $6,000 out of $56,000. That's a lot, right? I'm not good at math. I only coach wrestling, but I know that if we can make it free here or a junior college, I don't care what it is, go make it cheaper, right? And don't even apologize. Like, there's plenty of bad dudes. Tyrell Fortune wrestled here, and he was a 6-time Fargo champ. Okay, he went 8 times to Fargo. He got third once. Every other time he was in the finals, right? And it wasn't because he's dumb. He went to D2, got it, and had a great experience. Did he want to go Division I? A little bit, I think, but I don't know that it was really in his cards either. I think smaller class sizes fit him. What does that make him bad? Nah, man. The dude freaking wrestled Travell like 14 times to try and make a world team or something, right? Like, he's really good at the sport. So I don't think, and he's just one example, right? I mean, look at all the other countless guys that you guys know as much as you follow junior college. Matt Lindland was a junior college guy. You know, he coaches Team USA. So there's plenty of them out there, and it has nothing to do with, you know, it's more to do with maturity probably if it's like me, because that's what I need to do. So
for sure.
Anyways, you got me on a rant there because
no, we love it.
I'm a junior college blue blood, dude. That's where it's at.
Yeah. And I also think it's important for people to realize, like, you might have the talent to wrestle Division I, but you might not be a Division I student. And I think that's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow. And from where we're from in Jersey, it's Division I or no one really cares. And I think the good thing about, you know, either the Midwest or the West in itself is NIAA, right? That's not even an option in New Jersey. And I think kids having that option, we had the coach from Life U on.
Yeah.
He went to JUCO, then he went NIAA, and now he's got a career as a coach. And I think that's an important thing for people to realize.
Pretty awesome, right?
Yeah.
He's the man too. Omie's the man. He's a good dude.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's a fun one. One last one before we get to the rapid fire. You know, with the new NIL deal in the NCAA, is that available to Clackamas athletes, the junior college athletes? Can they make money now off of their name, image, and likeness?
That's a great question. The NJCA has moved towards the yes on that. So now we're trying to walk through, you know, what does that look like? How do we build a brand? What is, you know, what can kids, how can we help guys from our perspective in terms of moving that forward? And so pretty cool opportunity, unique at this level, because, you know, I don't know that there's necessarily as much money at this level, simply because, like anything else, right, it gets funneled at the highest levels. And so, you know, and then it's kind of the trickle down. And so, you know, I think there's certainly opportunities both locally with businesses and boosters that have companies that can help guys out. And I think we're trying to navigate through some interesting things here to try and figure out how we can help guys make that work.
Yeah, I think that's also just another opportunity of going back to those life lessons. You know, it teaches guys how to be entrepreneurs, and you know, there may not be like, you might not be like Gable Steveson in a Champs commercial, but you know, you might have the local businesses in Clackamas that want to use your name, image, and likeness. So I think that it teaches them to be resourceful and how to build their own brand and be their own boss or their own owner or their own CEO.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a cool thing too, because I mean, it does provide opportunity for real life on the job training, right? That's something that you could try and do through that process, and so that's kind of a cool thing.
So, Coach, we got some rapid fire. When we have wrestling coaches on, we have some wrestling specific rapid fire. Is there any rules that you would like to see change or added to college wrestling?
Yes. I want takedowns to be worth more. I like that idea. I don't know if I want to eliminate the escape, but I don't know how to make it not really crazy, right? Like if I say only if you work to get up, you get a 1, right? Like that's harder for fans to follow. I think we probably want to go towards making it easier to understand. But I think that would be an interesting one just because we've made near fall now 4 points. Taking a dude down is kind of hard too. And so I think that would be interesting to try and play with that a little bit.
Coach, is it stance in motion or stance and motion?
I use the N, stance in motion.
Cool.
And apostrophe when I type it up in the practice plan.
So, 2-part question. If you're a shoe head, what's your favorite wrestling shoe and what are you wearing now?
Okay, I'm wearing Rudis right now because those guys keep them on my feet. I've always my favorite pair of shoes I've ever owned, I probably have to answer in 2 parts. The 96 teals were awesome. Those were something that I loved. I actually probably more near and dear to me because I won them. My father said, hey, if you get in the district finals, qualify for state, then I'll buy them for you. So I didn't have to pay for them myself. And I did. And so that was a big deal when I was just a little guy. And then the other ones I loved were the white John Smiths. I think they were probably in 2000 that I had that were awesome. I loved them. So
cool. Right on. Do you have a favorite Rudis shoe of the moment?
Currently I have the what the heck are these? Well, the Tbilisis, and I love them.
Oh yeah,
I really like them a lot. We have the red, white, and blues that a bunch of guys have. Trying to think, Aguilar just got the black alphas, I want to say, and they're pretty nice, man. Like they have a good look. They've done a good job in the evolution of their shoe because I know they weren't that awesome and people weren't super happy with them in the generation 1, and then they've really turned out pretty awesome, man. I'm trying to get a pair of the Samurais from him. I got to hustle Beckman over there. He's my guy. He's our rep, and so trying to get me some Samurais.
So being a Rudis team, have you got to try out any of their running shoes?
I do. I have 2 pairs of their running shoes. I've got the black and the white and red. The white and red I only wear for when I'm seriously coaching. I don't wear them around. The black ones I wear daily, and I like them. They took a little bit to break in, but once I did, I really like them on my feet. They're comfortable.
Good to know.
Surprisingly, yeah.
Yeah, good to hear. I love a wrestling specific brand that's doing well, and I've heard
I'm near and dear to that.
And I've heard similar to what you said that the 1.0s were, visually they looked really good, but technically they didn't necessarily maybe function as some of the other big brand wrestling shoes. And now they're coming around, and that purple one, the Fruity Pebbles one, that reminds me of that. It reminded me of that Nike. I forget what it was called. It was like one of those hybrid, like
a foot sweep or whatever.
Yeah,
with the white rubber on it. It was purple, white swoosh, and then it had the rubber on the toe.
Yep.
They had some green ones that they made for the Ducks back then, because obviously I'm an Oregon guy, right? So the Ducks had some that were like that were pretty awesome.
Right on. Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that too, because I saw you guys singlets. Just the Rudis singlets look really sharp. So
they're pretty good, right? They do a good job.
They look awesome.
They crush it.
Coach, is it state or states?
Oh my gosh. This is such a contested topic. I'm going to say state champion, right? Okay. State, not with the S. Partly because one of my favorite championships to watch is California. They have one state champion. I really like the production they put on. I haven't been to Jersey yet because I know they have the single state champ as well. I have an affinity to that. In Oregon, we have 5. So I guess you have to say probably the S, because there's a bunch of dudes who email you and tell you they're the state champion at 103 pounds. And it's like, yeah, there's 5 of you. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude. I say it jokingly, and I get why some people want that, right? There's levels to this. We talk about it all the time in here. But state is the answer. Definitive answer.
Just a heads up, when you go to Jersey, even though there is one champion, it's states. So that may help. That may help build that pipeline.
I'll definitely change my answer. If this airs in Jersey, it's S at the end.
Is it 25 or 25s?
25s.
All right. Coach, I know you said you're a coffee guy.
Yeah.
How do you take it? How do you brew it?
All right. So no matter how I brew it or where I get it, it's black with honey in it.
All right.
Now that'll change your life. It's for the better, right? If you get local grown and you have and you're an allergy person, right, you're going to help yourself with your immune system, your allergies there. So that's kind of a little unknown fact. Honey blend at Starbucks is pretty fire, but they've been out of it recently, and I'm guessing that's a supply chain issue. But I got my own honey here next to the coffee pot. All the guys have to do it honey. I don't provide sugar because I just don't roll that way. And so you got to do it my way or black. So
how much honey you putting in? Just tablespoon?
Teaspoon. Or teaspoon or tablespoon. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%. Right now I go K-Packs. I got what do we got? Let me look. The Tully's Hawaiian blend is the flavor of the week right now in the K-Pack. And then if I go to Starbucks, I'm usually an Americano guy, right? Like I like Americanos with some room and some honey.
Cool. Do you have a fake?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Spark is the other caffeine of choice, right? Like I do Spark quite a bit, and these guys laugh because I function on coffee and Spark.
Do you have a favorite local roaster?
Yeah. So there's a couple. Stumptown is
oh shit.
Stumptown,
lucky you.
Yeah, is money. Portland Coffee Roast and Sisters Roasting Company in Central Oregon is really good as well. So those are kind of the ones my wife and I like to. And then internationally, I think it's probably what's the one from Italy? Ely coffee is pretty good too. Yeah.
Coach, do you have a daily ritual or practice that you do to show up as the strongest version of yourself every day?
Yeah, I do actually. I'd say here's the things that I do. I usually try and get up at 5, and I like to go through either I have like a scripture, that I read that pops up on my phone. Like that's kind of important to me personally. And then I like to, when I come into the office, I'll kind of mentally prepare, if you will, like anything else. Like I talk to my guys about preparing for a practice. Same is true for me. Like I'll mentally prepare so that I'm in not necessarily a mood isn't the right thing, but that I have the best version of me, right? Like sometimes the thing that's frustrating is I'm in this process at 5:20, guys that aren't feeling that great or they're tired, and I'll get all the text messages, right? And that totally takes me down the hole. I'll go down the rabbit quick, right, on that. Because it's like, gosh dang it, I'm trying to get fired up to be here. And that kind of spirals me out. When I get in the office, as I'm kind of doing that and preparing mentally, I'll have my coffee and I'll have my yogurt. Like those are my two things that I'll do. And then run back through the practice plan before I print it out. And then once you pull in the door and walk in the room, man, that's it, right? Like it's go time. So that's what I try to tell these guys as well. It's like once I walk through these doors, nothing else. I can't think about an argument me and my wife had or what I'm supposed to do after practice or, that's what I try and tell them, right? The other things that are kind of distractions, I got to let those simmer for 2 hours and then they can come back into focus once we get through this. So,
love it.
I love hearing that you're taking it as serious as the athletes are. That's amazing.
I'm pretty energetic when I coach. Like I'm pretty on fire. I don't care if we just wrestled a team in our conference who's a friend of ours coaches and they're newer. But I don't care if it's them and we won 55-0. I'm screaming like if we're wrestling Iowa Central in Fort Dodge or if we're in the national, it doesn't matter to me. Like it doesn't nameless, faceless. Let's go wrestle as hard as we can every single time. And we'll see how they do because this weekend's always a tough one. When you wrestle at Reno and the Oklahoma State singlet's in front of you or what, it's hard for guys to do, but you really try and say, wrestle it the same way just so you'll feel better, right? Like how many times have you wrestled a match you're like, dude, that is not the best version of me. And it was for something that wasn't something that guy did. It's something you put in here. Right. And so trying to tease that out in this process is, I think, important as well.
100%. Yeah. What are you listening to right now? Music wise, audiobook, podcast, you reading anything?
I'm reading, I'm kind of a weird guy like this. I read multiple books at a time. My wife hates it because there's like a stack. It is, hold on. I have to think about it because Nick Lee said it after his finals. Chop wood, carry water. Right. I'm reading that right now. And it's kind of, I read it through halfway and then I went back and read it through and then wrote notes. Again, I'm a different cat. That's fine. And then there's a book that I just got at church this last weekend, and I want to get the name of it right, but I can't think of it off the Unlikely Fighter, which is a cool book. Guy's story is just phenomenal, just from where he came. I love stories like that where there's, because a lot of these kids are this way, like where there's significant life change moments where your life could go one direction and it changes significantly because of, whether it's spirituality or a unique circumstance or a direction that I took or a choice that I made. And so I love stuff like that. It's encouraging. In terms of music, I love Johnny Cash. I'm going to listen to that on Pandora all the way to Reno because I always hope that I time it that I've Been Everywhere comes on as I'm pulling into Reno, right? Like it just makes sense for me. And I feel like I've been everywhere. My nickname is the Road Dog, RHOD dog, right? And I take that seriously. Smash a boatload of coffee before we go. And I'm the man who drives the 12 hours, or we've driven to Cody, Wyoming before, which is 16 hours. And I don't mind it. We fundraise a lot better now, so you fly places now. So if you're hearing this in New Jersey, we fly everywhere else. I just get to drive to Reno because I get to listen to Johnny Cash the whole way. I'm giving some culture lessons as I do this. So there you go.
Is it dog, DAWG, or DOG?
DAWG is how these guys do.
My dog.
Let's go.
Yeah. So we got to go with it.
You a 45-year-old 125 pounder?
You're ready to rock. See now,
Let's
the big thing is Julius Serrano, kid on our team from Stockton. He calls me the general, and so this is the Road Dog Army, right? And they started hashtag RDA, right? And so I posted it one time, not even looking, and my wife clicks on it on Instagram, and she goes, "Did you know that RDA is actually an acronym for this like pot smoking website that's on Instagram that's got thousands and thousands of hashtags that are associated with this?" And I posted on our team account, like that was on. He's like, "You probably should change it." So we had to go to Road Dog Squadron, so it's RDS. So
right on.
Think about that when you next time.
It's all about the hashtags.
You don't want to miss it.
Through sometimes.
Yeah. I whiffed on one big time, and Mrs. Rhoden, she caught it. Thank God.
Got to give dabs to her for looking out for you, for sure.
If my president clicked it, I might have had a different conversation.
Yeah. Coach, last and certainly not least, we run a very unique podcast over here where we try to have conversations with people that are doing amazing things in their field and things that we are into. So we run the gamut of guests. It's not just wrestling coaches over here, but we had some very unique people. We know you're an Oregon guy through and through.
Yeah.
If at any time in your upbringing in Oregon, have you ever had a incident in Sasquatch? Do you have any other favorite conspiracy theories that you find yourself on the YouTube late night rabbit hole?
Sasquatch is a good one. I've done a lot of hunting and fishing. We actually guided hunts growing up. My grandpa had 75,000 acres in Eastern Oregon where we guided elk hunts. I've spent a lot of time in the woods. My dad was a logger, bumped a lot of knots and ran around with those guys. I wouldn't say Sasquatch is one that I go with. UFOs, maybe, like that's kind of an interesting one to me. I don't believe in aliens though, right? So I don't know what the heck I've got this whole dichotomy that I fight against because I don't believe in aliens, but UFOs, that one's an interesting one to me because I'm guessing that the United States Air Force has some stuff that we aren't, or NASA or somebody is messing with us because I've seen some interesting things, and so has my dad as a result of living out in a cabin and logging, and it could be long hours and bad beer or something like that combines as well that causes the issue. But, there's some interesting things that have happened out there in the middle of nowhere, Oregon, that you just don't understand or explain. And it's usually surrounding some type of aircraft that you're like, what the hell is that? Right. And so that one's an interesting one to me. It usually gets my attention for a little bit. And then my wife's like, what are you watching? I don't know. That's
right on.
I think that's
I hear you. I've had an incident or two like that in the middle of nowhere in the mountains at 10,000 feet in Colorado.
It's usually right. Like, what the heck just happened?
Coach, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today, and keep on keeping on. You got two brothers in Colorado rooting for you, so keep on keeping on and have the best of luck this season.
Hey, thank you guys so much, man. Good luck to you guys. If I can do anything for you guys, or heck, if I'm around Colorado sometime, I might have to look you up.
Heck yeah, go get that 4th title, Coach.
We're going to try. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great day. Enjoy your week.